All right, tonight we welcome a very good friend, Katie Rodan, who's a Bay Area dermatologist specializing in adult acne, if that's the only thing she did. Outside her medical practice, Katie and her partner, Rodan+Fields, combined with Rodan+Ranker to reinvent and dominate the acne market with Proactive, which was an innovative skincare system to treat acne. Probably everybody in this room has seen that. Her second company, Rodan+Fields, takes a different line of products and a different distribution model. Imagine what it takes to build a branded product that sells over $1 billion a year. Imagine how hard that is. Imagine how risky that is. Imagine how rare that is. Then imagine it doing it twice in one lifetime. Here to share her experience with Proactive and Rodan+Fields, please welcome Katie Rodan. Katie.
Okay, I do have one question.
Sure.
I want to enroll in this. You guys are really lucky. Wow. Amazing lineup. That's really incredible.
Well, you've helped build it. I mean, it is, we always tell students that years of people coming and getting a good experience and coming back and telling their friends, it's a good vibe in here. The students get it. Millennials have a lot of people have a different description for millennials, but they get it earlier and they want purpose and they want meaning earlier, and you can feel it. So thank you so much for being here. She flew in from Northern California just to be here. We're going to get you on your...
It's my alma mater.
Yes, there you go. Let's go, just for Fight On. Always great to welcome back a Trojan. And you know when you meet somebody in a fun place, no matter when you see them, you're brought back to that place. Like just instantly, every time I see you, I'm just flooded.
Think of lions and tigers.
Lions and tigers. We met on a safari vehicle in Botswana. And you start talking on a vehicle. And by the way, I'm recruiting for USC everywhere I go. I'm not joking.
He was desperate at that point.
No, it just was. She's like, so, my sister's in fine fragrance and manufacturing, so they start talking. So, what do you do? She's like, I'm in skincare. It's like, oh, really? I'm sort of in a related field. What's the name of your company? She's like, Proactive. And you're just like, okay. And we have a common friend. Some of you have met Ben Vandebunt, who's one of the owners of Rodan+Ranker. And so instantly, we sort of reconnected. But I wish I'd brought that picture, some of the pictures from Botswana. I'm dying to get back. We were, surrounded by lions.
Yeah.
I mean, like 20, 25, 30 lions. This place called, was it Mambo Camp that we met at?
It was Mambo Camp.
Mambo is like, just whispering Mambo. Mambo, it's where National Geographic films, it's where BBC films. It's one of the greatest places. It's Jurassic
beautiful.
Park.
Yeah. Save your money, go there. It's worth it.
It's incredible. So what I want to do tonight, this class is about entrepreneurial mindset more than the nuts and bolts of building a business. So I want to sort of cover 3 parts: background, upbringing, sort of early lessons, Proactive, and then the bulk of it on Rodan+Fields. So
Okay,
is that all right?
Sounds good.
So let's start on sort of where you were born, where you grew up, and sort of number of siblings in your family. I forget how many.
Okay, the basics.
Yes.
So I grew up right here in Southern California. In fact, I'm a Valley girl. And grew up in Woodland Hills. My parents are very academic people. My mother is a microbiologist at 89, still teaches full-time.
Oh my gosh.
It's pretty amazing, and she's an amazing teacher. And my father is on the infamous Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, which has been getting a lot of press. So imagine growing up with an ex-Marine federal court judge as a dad. There wasn't a lot of fun going on in the family. No, and I have one older brother, and he is also a federal judge. So that's it.
So we'll talk about the family business in a second. You always like to ask people if they had early entrepreneurial or selling experience. You were a Girl Scout.
Yes.
You sold cookies.
Yes.
And then you also had another business. What was your earliest business?
Well, let me go back to the Girl Scout thing, because as I said, my parents were very academic people. So, they're reading Charles Dickens, and I'm interested in, business. And my mother used to say I must have fallen off another planet. So an example of that is I was a Girl Scout. My mother was the troop leader. We sold a ton of cookies. And if you sold a certain number of cookies, then you got a free ticket to, go to Disneyland. But this was back in the day when you got a booklet of tickets for Disneyland. So there was something called the E-Ride. You ever heard anybody talk about that? The C-Ride. And you just get so many of those. You couldn't just go to any ride you wanted. So I go to Disneyland, and I think, I've been on all these rides. And so I stood outside the ticket booth, and I sold all of my tickets. And I came back, and my parents go, "Where did you get all this money?" And I said, "Oh, I sold all my tickets one by one." That's how I spent the day. So I guess looking back, that was maybe one of the earliest signs.
Always selling. And then at 13, I think you had like a purse business?
Yes. Yeah. So at 13. So, in my family, my parents are just wonderful, and they're very generous people, but I hated to go to them and ask them for money to buy a dress or something. I was always interested in fashion. And so I decided I really wanted to find ways to make my own money. And so I started a business. I can sew, and I would sew fur purses, rabbit fur purses. I know that's probably not very PC, but I'd sew these purses. I'd sew suede ones. I'd have embroidery. I'd have beading and all that. And I actually sold them to a store at Topanga Plaza Mall called the Light Brigade. And this guy would sell, and I did this for years. I would make these purses and deliver them. Then I started making jewelry and everything. And I asked him once, "Who do you tell people who made these things?" And he said, "I tell them a hippie from Topanga. I can't tell them a junior high school girl made these." So yeah, so that sort of started it. And that really felt good. I think it felt good to have that kind of independence and not have to ask my parents for money for stuff.
If you see someone hustling early on in their teens, whether it's out of desperation or whether it's out of just like the desire to express herself or do something different, you sort of have a really good marker that they're going to do okay in life, that you don't have to worry about them if they're hustling. So you mentioned the family business. What did your parents recommend? What line of work did your parents recommend you go into?
Yeah, well, you can guess. It was law. So when I went to college, I was a history major, and it really wasn't until I was about ready to graduate that I ended up working at the old Cedars of Lebanon. Well, it was Cedars of Lebanon, Cedars-Sinai now, cardiovascular lab, where I got turned on to science. There's a whole long story there, which I won't go into. But anyway, ended up wanting to go to medical school. So I called my parents, who believe me, I value their opinion. I'm very close to them. And I said, "You know what? I've decided I'm not going to go to law school. I think I'm going to switch my major, and I want to go to medical school." And you would have thought my parents dropped the phone. There was just dead silence. And my dad said, "Yeah, but you're not good at science." And I said, "Well, how do you know that?" He said, "I don't know. That's what your high school teachers said." And I said, "Well, what do they know?" So, I didn't take their advice, which is really, that's a tip in and of itself. You know yourself better than even the people who are closest to you know you. So you know what you're really good at. So I did, and I never looked back, and it was the best decision, and I loved med school, and I loved all of it, and still do, by the way.
And the sooner you can get to following your gut and tuning out, it's great to listen to parents and people who know you, but you have to tune out the noise, because there's going to be a series of decisions that she makes that puts her on a path that, at the time wouldn't make sense or wouldn't line up, but you're going to see that each step she sort of made the decision on what, and overcoming some things that didn't go well. So your parents say you're not good in science, you follow your gut. Through, I guess before medical school, you had to take your MCATs, right?
Yes.
So admission test. How did your MCATs go?
Oh, that's another story. So I'd take all the science in 1 year, so in order to qualify to take the MCATs to go to med school. And that was very unusual at the time. Today, that's much more commonplace. And so I go in to take the MCATs before I had actually finished all the courses, just based on when it was offered. And I got through the first section, and I thought that they said, time's going to be up in 5 minutes, and I look, and I've got like pages still left, and I'm going, oh my gosh, and it was this really hard section, and I just start circling, the same letter, so statistically I get some of them right. And I leave, and I go out, and I think, that's it, I blew the test. My parents were right. I'm not good at science. They're right. I call them up. And my parents are, again, I can't say enough good about them. It's just, I'm so lucky to have been born to such wise people. And I say to them, I think I'm done. I think I'm going to quit. I'm not doing it. You were so right. I'm not going to go in. I'm not going to finish the test. There was a whole afternoon. And they didn't say anything. And my dad said, I'll tell you what, why don't you go in the bathroom, wash your face, eat your lunch, and call me. So this is probably the only time I'll really get emotional. But I did exactly that. But I didn't call him. I went back in, I took the test, and did just fine. So it's a I think for me, it sort of speaks to, I think one of the key characteristics if you want to be an entrepreneur is you have to have that ability to pick yourself up and just keep moving forward, even if you feel like things are not going well. And you have to push through it. You have to persist in spite of naysayers. And we can get to some stories about naysayers along the way. And you just have to go with it. You have to be willing to really put yourself out there and risk all of that, and find out what you're made of.
So you move on. You go to Medical College of Virginia.
Yeah, I was living in Virginia.
And then came to USC.
And then I came to USC.
And then Stanford. You did a
Yes.
dermatology residency.
Yes. Yes.
And sort of lit your fire. You knew you wanted to study dermatology and acne because you had suffered as a kid.
Yeah. From day one of medical school, I wanted to be a dermatologist, which was very unusual at the time. And my anatomy partner said to me, oh my gosh, what a waste. But I knew I wanted to do that because I had acne as a teenager. And having had acne and having struggled with that and worrying about every single pimple and what were people thinking and feeling embarrassed and ashamed and not wanting to go to school, I really got it. I got how disabling and how much that can really impact a person's self-confidence. So all I ever wanted to be when I decided I was going to go to medical school was to be a dermatologist. And it was pretty compelling because it got me through a lot of school, a lot of education, and then to co-found a company with my partner.
I love that along the way, sort of what some people say, and I wonder what if you check back with them. So you got advice from the department chairman about a dermatology practice, and you shared that last time. Something about find a hobby.
Oh yeah, so that was really amazing advice. Our dermatology, the chairman, Dr. Gene Farber, would always say to us, find a hobby in dermatology. You can't go out into the world and just start in private practice, because let me tell you, all you're going to see is acne and you are going to be bored. And I got out into private practice and I saw acne because that's really what I wanted to see, and I was never bored. And it really lit my fire, because having had acne and being treated with all these different medications, tetracycline and all these topicals that were very irritating, what I found as a dermatologist is that nothing had really changed from the standpoint of medicines since I had suffered with acne. So in those intervening 15 years or so, I was prescribing the same drugs that I took that didn't really work for me, that gave me all kinds of side effects. So I called my friend Kathy and I said, hey, we got to do better. We got to figure this out, because there are no one else is working on this problem.
You talk, in any business that you start, you want to know the customer intimately. You want to know what moves them, what makes them buy, what's important to them, what benefits you need. So you spent 12 years practicing as a dermatologist, hearing the problems, seeing the problems, and seeing a gap in the market. So how did you and Kathy look at that gap in the market and determine that there could be a better type of solution, a way to address
it
it?
actually wasn't 12 years.
It wasn't?
Well, if you're including all the education, then yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. But I had been out of my residency, I think it was a little less than 2 years. And it was really from talking to people. You know, I love to I love to meet people. I love to talk to them. I love to hear what they're using. And I was very interested in, you know, literally digging through people's backpacks and, hey, what you got in there? And so what I realized is that all the treatments that were out there on the market were medicines to spot treat a pimple. So that meant you had to have a pimple before you could even treat the pimple. And having now studied dermatology and been in practice for a couple of years, I went, that is so ridiculous. That's like a dentist telling you brush the tooth after you get a cavity. You got to prevent cavities, so you have to brush every day. Acne is a condition that requires prevention. So because the pimple that you see today didn't start yesterday, it actually started weeks before. So you have to interrupt the cycle that's going on. You probably heard me say all this in an infomercial if you ever watch them, you know, underneath the skin before it surfaces. So you have to treat that process while it's forming. So since you don't know where the pimple is going to pop up, you have to treat the whole face. But the problem was, you can't treat the whole face with the medicines that existed because they were too drying and irritating, so nobody would use them. And that's key, got to use these things. So that's where I think we saw some daylight, some opportunity where we could make something that was like a Clinique three-step system, because Clinique three-step system was just sort of coming into vogue, and women were doing this sort of ritual cleanse, tone, wash, cleanse, tone, treat, or moisturize, and we thought we could fit in a system into that kind of, you know, regimen and medicate it so that people would use it every day. They'd feel good about their skin, and their skin wouldn't break out anymore. And what was astonishing at the time, so, you know, we come up with the idea, we start working with benzoyl peroxide in a very low strength, which wasn't used in a low strength at that point in time, and trying it out on patients. And what was really surprising to us is you said, you got to know your market, you got to do your homework, is that the acne marketplace was so small. It was like $250 million at retail in the entire United States, which to us seemed like a big number, but it really is pretty small.
So how long did it take for you and Kathy to develop the product? Where, I mean, was it in the kitchen? Was it in the lab? I mean, how did you cook it up, and how long did it take before you had something that you were ready to sort of introduce to the market?
Yeah, so it really was kind of out of our kitchen. That was kind of our home base. That was sort of our office, was we'd meet in my kitchen, and I had little children around, and so it was pretty crazy. But anyway, no, we didn't personally cook it up. We're not cosmetic chemists, but we learned that that's the person who actually will help you develop a formula. And the way in which you do that, which is, you know, these are not things you learn in medical school or dermatology practice or anything. You have to kind of find your way through this. And so what we realized is that we have to give them products that feel like this, that smell like this, that look like this, that have these ingredients in it and these medicines, and that's what we want you to create. So it's really a recipe that they create. And that took years. That probably took a good 5 years before we came up with a formula that we really liked.
So it's funny, you hear these stories, you think overnight, you know, these things happen. They don't.
Yeah.
I mean, especially in an area of expertise like skincare. So intense customer focus groups and feedback of what works, what doesn't, how it smells, that they want to put on their whole face. And you get to a product, and you mentioned about the size of the market. And this is one of the lessons that I want you to sort of to highlight. So at the time, the entire acne market, all acne products, is in the US or world? What were you saying?
US.
US was $250 million. and you met a man named, I think his name was Rodan+Fields.
Yes, yeah.
And tell the lesson about how he looked at the market, because you weren't a business person at the time, how he looked at the market and what advice he gave to you.
Yeah. So we found this gentleman, a lovely Costa Rican man who had spent his career in marketing, and he's, we tell him all about our product and our idea, and we show it to him, but we don't know what the heck to do with it. And so he comes over to my house. Now we moved from the kitchen. We're in the dining room now, and we have one of those flip charts, that you can write on. So he picks up a marking pen and he puts a little circle here, and he says in his accent, which I'll, like, this is the acne market. This was not very good. But he draws this little tiny circle, and he says, this is the size of the acne market. It's this small. It's really small. It's $250 million. Ugh, not very big. And the same medicines have been around forever. That was Clearasil and Oxy. And then he draws this huge circle right next to it, and he goes, this gigantic circle is the size of the skincare market. So here's my idea. We're going to take the little circle and we're going to move it inside the big circle. And then you can have a much bigger market. And we're like my partner and I are like going, you just take the little circle and you move it. I mean, this is like makes no sense to us. And he goes, no. Listen, you flip the tortilla. You don't have an acne product. You have a skincare product that happens to address acne. So if you position it, because it's all about how you position it, how you message exactly what your product does and what it represents, if you position it that way, you will then access a much wider audience than you would if you focus narrowly on acne. So that was really sage advice.
That's profound
That
when
was
you think about your
profound,
path.
yes.
Because you start looking at a market, and your business school professors will tell you, take the industry, take the market segmentation, look at the segmentation, your sort of category of customers, your most likely customer, your first customer. So you start drilling down. So you're naturally going to get to a smaller subset by doing that. Instead of just saying, you're not in this industry, you're in this industry that's much bigger. And to put it in perspective, the entire market, every single product from every single brand sold $250 million. And you guys, will write business plans, and I wrote them that just said, if we capture 1% of the market, we'll be billionaires. Everyone writes, well, if I got 2%. Imagining getting 400% of the entire market. 4 times the entire size of the US market becomes proactive. So it is a profound way to look at it.
Well, it's what the word today is called disruptive. It was very disruptive because what we did is we didn't draw from existing acne customers. We brought in a whole new demographic of people to use the product who had acne, who were not actually treating the acne because nothing worked. And it's, one of the things we didn't talk about, which I think is something important for you to know, is that my partner and I did this literally out of our own measly checkbooks. I had a mortgage, I had 2 kids, my husband, we're working our tails off. We have absolutely no money. I don't come from a wealthy family. My partner doesn't either. And so every time we worked with a chemist, we're writing a check, and we're writing a check to Rodan+Fields. All of these things are happening. We had no one who was interested in investing in us. And it was for a lot of reasons. 1, we weren't viewed as business people. 2, they didn't think my track record of success with purses was enough to qualify me. And so, so we didn't have that kind of a background. And 2, they would look at the size of the market and they'd go, why should we care about a $250 million a year market? That's, invent a wrinkle cream, they kept telling us. And we said, no, we think the market is bigger. We really think it's bigger because the reason it's so small is because nothing works. So if nothing works and we have a product that works, you're going to see that the market is much bigger. Now, believe me, we're making this up. This was not out there written up in newspapers or, medical journals. So it was something that we had a feel for based on our experience as dermatologists, because we were seeing people of all ages pouring into our practices who had acne, and maybe many of them didn't identify with the word acne. So if you'd asked them in a survey, do you have acne, they would have said no. But I do have 3 or 4 zits a month, but they didn't, So we knew that a lot of people didn't think about that. So they were, underrepresented. And that if we could just speak to them and actually give them something that worked, that cleared up their skin and kept it clear, that would be a success.
And you mentioned being rejected by investors, professional investors on the size of the market, your experience. Didn't they also say, like, if it's so obvious to you,
yes,
why hasn't Procter & Gamble done it yet?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, in fact, they said that very thing. They said, hey, listen, Procter & Gamble has dermatologists on its boards. Why wouldn't they do it? I mean, you're telling me that everybody's treating acne the wrong way and you have the magic to how to treat it the right way. That just doesn't make a lot of sense. And we didn't have an answer for them. We had no idea. Why aren't they doing it? I have no idea why they weren't doing it. It seemed so obvious to us.
Those are the best passes by investors for you. And we'll
Yeah.
So you mentioned your partner, Kathy. You guys met at Stanford?
Yes.
And hit it off right away and have been longtime friends before you went into business. How long is your partnership agreement?
Well, we've been partners now for almost 30 years.
No, I didn't mean duration,
Yeah.
but how long is the document?
So the document, actually, I typed on a typewriter. Do you guys know what a typewriter is? So I typed it on a typewriter. And it's about this long. It's about 4 sentences. And actually, I have it hanging in my house. It's the best piece of art I own. And it says, Dr. Kathy Fields and Dr. Katie Rodan are 50-50 partners in a skincare business. And something along the lines of all expenses will be shared equally, as will any profits. And any expense over $50 must be approved by both parties prior to incurring the expense. So that says it all right there.
It does.
It does. Well, I think it's a good point of you don't need money to make money. People they throw that saying around like, it's gospel, and it's not.
It depends on, and most people would say for a branded national product, you need a lot of money. I mean, national brand minimum of $20 million. You didn't have $20 million. We'll talk about the unique strategy that you guys deployed to roll this out. You didn't have investors, but you had a partner. I want to talk about rejection. Not just from investors, but from business partners. You guys saw the ideal partner for you for Proactiv to be distributed, and it was Neutrogena.
Yes.
Tell us about the pitch to Neutrogena and the result of that.
Yeah. So actually, Kathy and I flew down right here to LA. Neutrogena headquarters used to be right near the airport, and we march into Neutrogena. We had set up a meeting. We didn't just show up. We'd set up a meeting and had a series of meetings and finally worked our way to the point where we were meeting with the CEO and the president of Neutrogena. It was a private company. Today it's owned by Johnson & Johnson. And so we brought our little baggies of products, and we brought our, prototypes of our package design and the name and all that stuff, and a business plan, actually, that I, again, typed up. My nanny helped me with that one. And my husband is a business person. He went to Harvard Business School. He's amazing. With Proactiv, he was kind of our outside advisor. So, his advice was, we don't have any money. You guys can't put this out on the shelf. We have no money to manufacture it and do all the advertising, et cetera. So you need to license it. You need to find a partner. So as you said, it was Neutrogena. So we walk into Neutrogena headquarters with our little baggies. We meet with the president. We tell him, this is what we have. You guys are doing it the wrong way. This is a better way. And they're just kind of, And they're, saying, yeah, listen, you got a point there. But what the CEO said, his name was Alan Kurtzman, and he was an amazing guy. He's one of those guys, when E.F. Hutton talks, you listen. That old commercial. I hope you know that. No, you don't know that. Okay. We grew up with that. It was kind of a mantra. Anyway, he said, I know how you're going to sell this product. You are going to sell it on an infomercial. This was in 1993-94. And I thought, he has got to be kidding us. That no way does he think we're going to go on television. And I even looked at him and I said, Alan, we're good girls. We went to Stanford. We would never do an infomercial to sell our product. Why don't you guys just take it? You sell it, you put your name on it. If you don't like the name we picked out, Proactive, that's okay. But no, we're not going to go on TV and sell it. I couldn't believe my ears. And he said, listen, I bet you don't know the first thing about infomercials. I think you need to go home and watch them and see, because it gives you an opportunity to really explain why your product's different, what acne is, showcase some before and afters. It gives you a half an hour to really enter somebody's living room and share this with them who's suffering at home. So, we thought about it. And he said, and look, if we buy you, we're going to consider doing this. Because if we took your product, this 3-step system, skincare system, and we put it on a drugstore shelf, and it's $40, and down here is our $3.99 Zit cream that we're telling everybody since biblical times to just put on a pimple, why would somebody spend 10 times more to buy this, 3 products, use it every day? They won't understand it, so they're not going to buy it. So I think it would be a flop. So an infomercial is the way to go.
And you guys were crushed.
We not at that point. We thought, okay, maybe we have a partner with Neutrogena. Let's go study them. And we looked at the infomercials, and there were a lot of, kind of ones that were not so great. And then there were a few that were really actually very well done. Testimonials were very well spoken. They weren't, creating false promises or anything like that. They actually were nicely filmed and everything. So we watched those. And we waited for them, and they did call. And now this is the crushed part. So they did call. They called actually my office. And the CEO of Neutrogena said, I'm very sorry, but we've decided to pass on the opportunity. So I was crushed. I called up Kathy. She was crushed. Together, can you imagine the two of us are sitting there crying on the phone, and we got patients, sitting in rooms. And it was devastating because here we were, 5 years, all the money that we had put into this, we bring it to Neutrogena, we tell them everything, we give them our whole plan, our whole idea, they come up with the idea of the infomercials, and now they turned us down. We were absolutely certain they were going to copy us. They were going to knock us off. Because even though we had what's called a non-disclosure agreement, that is not worth a lot, guys. When you're going up against a big company that can out-lawyer you. I mean, we couldn't afford a lawyer for, a day, and they would have armies of lawyers. So we would never win that case. So we were just absolutely devastated and thought, oh, it's terrible. It's like how I felt when I walked out of the MCAT after the morning. Oh, it's over, it's over. And then you pick yourself back up and you go, there's got to be another way.
So you get introduced, you look at infomercials, and actually through your mother, you get introduced to someone at Guthy-Renker. Guthy-Renker is the leader in infomercials. And at the time, she's, her description is generous. It's sort of, there's some really, really sketchy ones, and then there's some well-done ones. And Guthy-Renker was sort of the class of the group.
They were the ones.
And they had sort of launched Tony Robbins and a couple other products. I don't know if Vanna White came before you.
No, Victoria Principal.
Yeah, Victoria Principal. And so you team with Guthy-Renker. Just tell us sort of how that was structured, not with details of the deal, but just sort of how it was structured. What was their responsibility and what was your responsibility?
Yeah, and that was pure serendipity because it was through my mother at a judges conference. So again, one of my favorite quotes, keep this in mind, is luck favors the prepared mind. And it's by Louis Pasteur said that. And our minds had been prepared by Alan Kurtzman, the CEO of Neutrogena, to think about infomercials. Fast forward 2 weeks later, my mother's at this conference, her friend asked her what I'm up to. My mom tells her, and she says, I wonder if she'd like to meet my nephew, Greg Ranker. And my mother's telling me this, and I couldn't believe it. So that's how we were introduced to them, through my mother, which is a very unlikely source. But had that happened earlier, it probably wouldn't have gone anywhere. We wouldn't have been open to it. But because that seed had been planted in our minds, it seemed like it made a lot of sense. So we did. We partnered with them. We worked out a deal where they provided all of the basic infrastructure of the business, the manufacturing, the selling, the buying the infomercial time, et cetera, paying celebrities. Then it was Judith Light was our main celebrity. And my partner and I got royalties, and we had obligations in terms of continuing to work on the brand.
So I think it was launched in '95, somewhere
Yes.
around there. And what were the initial sales expectations?
So it was about, I think Greg Ranker said, if we can make 13 million in our first year, which seemed huge to us. I mean, this is a product we were thinking about selling in our practices. He said, if we can make that, then, that'll be amazing. And I think we did that in the first month. I mean, it was pretty astounding. So everything that Kathy and I had predicted based on our experience really did come true.
And who were some of the celebrity spokespeople that have represented Proactive over the years?
Yeah,
Who's who?
Justin Bieber. So you're interviewing
Scooter Braun.
Yeah, Scooter Braun. We had Justin Bieber and Jessica Simpson. Who else have we had? I mean, Alicia Keys, P. Diddy, Vanessa Williams. I mean, it's really been Katy Perry. I mean, it's been a pretty amazing lineup. So acne became cool. It wasn't cool when we started, but it did.
And it continued to grow at just a really astounding rate. And with that size, like I said, that size business. So it's at '95 you launch. I guess in 2015 you eventually sell. Right?
Yes.
That's sort of the timing, so
Yeah.
20 years.
Mm-hmm.
And you're watching this inflection and just growing and growing and growing. So with this great business that you have that's providing for an unbelievable life for your family, for your partners, how many total employees did you have?
0. It was just the two of us. And the office was still in my house. So, yeah.
Best business ever.
It was very exciting, and listen, it was a great learning experience, and Guthrie Ranker were amazing partners, really terrific partnership, so we got very lucky there. So that business, I think, looking back, having now done it again in a very different way, completely different way, looking back, that was so much easier than our next business, because there was so much that came together in a very beautiful way where, yes, it took us a while. And somebody once said to me that it takes about 7 years from the time you conceive of an idea about a business to actually when it starts to turn that corner and become successful. And that was exactly about how long it took. It was about 7 years. But when it did, it took off. We had great partners. So everything went along beautifully. And it was the perfect timing for this product because infomercials were just coming into being. They hadn't been around until actually we launched Proactive. So it was just the right product, the right time, the right message, and it really worked. Then our next business, which I know we'll talk about, was completely different. If the stars aligned in Proactive, they did not align with Rodan+Fields initially.
You're the best interviewee ever, because like everything I'm about to ask, she just leads into it perfectly and then flips it back to me. I'm like,
No.
are you reading my notes?
No.
This is incredible. Yes, we're on to Proactive. I'm sorry, we're on to Rodan+Fields. So Proactive, just to sort of put the ribbon on that, you and Kathy sold your interest when Guthy-Renker partnered with Nestle for international
Yes.
expansion in 2015. So you're free of that. You did extremely well. And I want to start with why, because I know you were already in Rodan+Fields, but you think about it, that we'll get to the what in the business and
Okay.
how. But the why, you've got enough money to do whatever you want for the rest of your life and enjoy it, and your family's secure. You're still practicing dermatology. Like, why are you driven to start another very, very challenging business?
Yeah, it's something that you're compelled to do. I can't even describe it. It's like you have to do it. It's a calling. It's not, we never did this thinking, oh, we're going to do a business and we're going to do it to make a lot of money. That was never it. It was something that you feel like, I can make a difference. I really can. I've got an idea. I see a different approach. There's a need for it. And we've got to create that. So Kathy and I mean, we're avid product developers, and we love to do it, and we love these sort of, brainstorming sessions, and still practice, because it's a wonderful way to have, it's our, market research every single day we're in the office. In fact, this is what I wore to the office with a white coat over it, and saw patients today, and we love it because that context keeps it very real. And so, did that answer the question?
Yeah, it did. So,
Yeah.
I mean, you're in touch. It's not a fluke. You're in touch with the customers every day.
Yeah.
You're talking with them. And so you're hearing not just, feedback on your products, but their needs and what they like and don't like. And so you really are in a customer focus group every day. So let's talk about Rodan+Fields and what makes it different. You started the company, and I don't remember the year, but you sold it early on to Estee
Yes,
Lauder.
right.
So large international company, Estee Lauder, in fragrance and cosmetics. And what happened after you sold it? What did you see?
So we sold it in 2002. We launched it, I think, 2002. Maybe we sold it in 2003. It was somewhere right around then. And initially, Guthy-Renker wasn't interested in it. They felt that they had already had their hands full with Proactive, and it could be confusing to customers, so they weren't interested. Our contract allowed us to continue to develop products, and we had a very unique perspective as women and as dermatologists on how we could formulate and approach skin conditions. So we made kits. So if you've seen Proactive or tried it, it's a 3-step system. It comes in a box. So we look at other issues that people have, because acne is only one of them. So we thought about other conditions like aging conditions, sun damage, sensitive skin, rosacea, acne, and we created these different systems to address each one of those, just like we did with Proactive, this combination therapy. And we knew we needed a way to speak to the customer directly. Now, we weren't going to do it with infomercials. We couldn't contractually. So we thought, well, let's go to retail. So we went to some high-end retail stores. Actually, Fred Siegel was the first one we got a purchase order from, and Bergdorf Goodman, and we started there, and then we went out to some Nordstrom. And within a very short time, Estee Lauder saw us. Dr. brands were very in vogue then. They saw us on the shelf, and they came along and bought us. And that was 6 months after we put it out there. So it was fast. So it looked like the stars were really aligning with this one, but they weren't.
And so Estee Lauder controls the brand. You guys have a vision and plan to grow it to a $100 million business. But within a large company like Estee Lauder, you might be able to get lost and not
Yes.
focused on. So when did you and Kathy sort of make the decision of, it's not the right fit, we want to, instead of starting again, we want that back? And how did you sort of go about getting it back?
Okay, so our first, what's called a public appearance. So we would do these public appearances where you'd go to different department stores, and they would put a little sign out or flyer, so, come in, schedule a time, meet the doctors who created Proactive, and get a skin assessment. So my partner and I would stand there. And it was so painful. I remember somebody I knew was helping us with marketing said, "Isn't this exciting?" And I said, "If this is how we're going to grow this business, give me a razor blade and I'm slitting my wrists right now." It was so hard. When you're used to speaking to millions of people at a single time, either on QVC or an infomercial, and to stand in a department store and meet 20 customers, in an afternoon, or 30, if you're lucky, and then try and talk to them one by one, that's really seemed, we just weren't going to be able to reach people. So, we had hoped it was going to get easier and better, but a lot of the marketing of these new brands and the way in which Estee Lauder does it is to build them up in just that way. Founders go around, they do personal appearances, and it just seemed really painful. And you couple that with the fact that the recession happened. So now we're several years into this where we'd been trying and doing this and we were still doing well as a clinical brand. So in that doctor brand category, we were doing well, and in most of the stores, I think we were number 1 or number 2. But it still just seemed so small. It seemed like we're never going to have that reach that we wanted. So, right then and there was when, the ball dropped and the recession hit, and department stores are literally like ghost towns. No one is shopping at Neiman Marcus, Nordstrom, Macy's. There was just no one there.
And you're completely reliant on that channel.
Yeah.
So your business takes a massive hit, as many retail brands did. So it's 2007, I guess.
Yeah.
And 2008. So you buy the company back.
Yeah. So we still, I remember saying to Kathy when we sold it to Estee Lauder, because we were kind of, she sort of said, well, it feels early. Maybe we should hang on to it for a longer period of time. And I remember saying to her, Kathy, if they can't make us big, then no one can. We're with the powerhouse. Estee Lauder, you guys may not know this, but when you walk into a department store and you see all those different cosmetic brands, they are owned either by the Estee Lauder Corporation or by the L'Oreal Corporation. So Estee Lauder, we were one of 23, 24 brands that they had, from Jo Malone, MAC, Bobbi Brown. And so we thought, well, they have the distribution, they have the marketing arm, they have thousands of employees. So I remember thinking that. And then the realization as we were doing these personal appearances, which turned out to be very good, even as painful as they were, and I didn't slit my wrists, as painful as they were, we learned a lot in doing those. And we talked again to our customers, and we found out that people were coming to us not because Estee Lauder had done marketing necessarily, or Nordstrom had done ads for us or anything. They had really just given us shelf space, but it was because of word of mouth. So somebody saw your skin change and they'd go, wow, your skin looks amazing. Like, what are you using? And then they'd say, I use this product, Rodan+Fields. You can buy it, at such and such a place. So that's how we learned our customers were coming in and why they were buying our product. And so we knew we had a good product. And even though it wasn't selling what we thought what it should have. So that was a huge risk on our part. I can't even describe how risky it was to go to Estee Lauder and say, we want to buy our business back. I think we're maybe the only one in their history to ever do that. And it's in the middle of the recession. And we had, decided it's just going to be the two, Kathy and me again. We're going to do this on our own.
Tell the students how this is different than Proactive, a different product and different distribution.
Yeah, and I think distribution for any product is a really, it's something that often is a very tough question to answer. How are you going to get it into the hands of the customer? So infomercials were actually starting to wane. They were not they had their day. They weren't as strong as they once were, because if you just think about all your viewing habits, how many of you guys watch TV and watch commercials and infomercials. You don't. You watch stuff on your computers, you know, in that day, you know, you'd TiVo it when there was a TiVo. So people weren't really paying any attention to commercials and infomercials. So we knew that wasn't going to be the channel, that wasn't going to be the answer. And we thought about word of mouth businesses. And the one that came closest to what we were thinking of, although we knew nothing about it, again, walking into this blind, was the direct selling channel, that type of model where it's person to person.
And you've the distribution models you've deployed have been cutting edge. Now they probably hear it and go, "Oh, that sort of seems obvious," you know, to sort of do a combination of online, in-person, direct marketing. But what's interesting about yours is, you know, when you sold it to Estee Lauder, you look backwards and say, "This is the way it's always been done." And so if they can't do it, who can? Because they have, you know, the machine already set up. And the outliers, the companies, you know, that disrupt, are ones that do something different. Instead of looking backwards, you look forward and how people consume now. So you did have this method in mind. It's not just acne products, obviously. It's aging, wrinkles, sun
damage, sensitive skin,
so.
and we have an acne product too.
And these are, what are the price points?
So the price points were like 4 times the price point of Proactive. So much more expensive. So Proactive kits sold for $40, and these were, I think, $160 retail.
And if they were $160 at retail, you know, in a typical retail environment, someone's going to keystone your product. So if they're selling it at $160 retail, Rodan+Fields is probably selling for about $80. Typically, that's, you know, half, 50%. And so, did it strike you of like what you're giving away all that margin for?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it really did, because you're thinking, okay, the department stores get half of that margin, and Sephora gets 60%. We were not in Sephora. So that's a huge amount of money that you're giving out there just to have a space on a shelf. And then you're competing with all the other brands that are on the floor, and you have salespeople who make their money based on commission. So while $160 for this system compared to Proactive seems like a lot, it's nothing compared to a $500 eye cream. They'd much rather sell a $500 eye cream than explain what a system is like, what one of these systems is like, and how to use it. It was much more complicated, and the commission wasn't there for them.
So again, you have a product that needs education,
Yes.
just like you had with Proactive. So are the salespeople on the floor at Macy's the right people to educate your customers?
Yeah, not necessarily. So, you know, they might have been, you know, they're selling your product, but the week before they might have been, you know, who knows, working in lingerie. So they just didn't have the passion. And we knew we needed people who would be passionate about it. So we started thinking, what if instead of giving this 50% margin to a department store that's doing nothing, why not give it to the people who love the products, who use the products, and recommend the products, and want to make a business out of this? Let's figure out a way to do that.
And you've built such a fervent following, and you call them consultants.
Yes.
What's the deal for the consultants? How is it structured for them?
So, you know, to be a consultant, really have to, you know, use the product, have had good results with the product. I mean, we only want passionate people who are doing it, but they're very self-selected. So there isn't like a criterion or a test you have to pass or anything like that.
But so how's it structured? So they sell the product word of mouth and have their own sort of sub-business, and what do they make on the product?
So the way it's structured is it's on a commission basis. So they don't make any money until a product is sold. Let's go back, because I think it's hard to explain it this way. So let's just sort of look at how we set up this business. So we set it up really by thinking, you know, there's something called the WIFM. You guys know what that is? WIFM? What's in it for me? And when you're selling something, you have to always think of the person who's buying your product. What's the WIFM for that person? What's in it for them? How can we make it easy for them, profitable for them, all of that? And so when you put yourself, which Kathy and I did with our kind of more middle-class values, in their shoes, we thought we wouldn't want to have to go out and invest thousands of dollars in inventory and then try and offload it to a neighbor, keep it in our garage. How can we do that? So we set up this business so that somebody could join our business to sell our product, but they would sell it online. They would sell it through websites that are replicated websites that we created. One of the things that is key to having success and having a legacy brand is branding. So staying very true and very clear to your message. So we wanted to create all of the materials that would be used in selling the products. So we created websites. So if somebody wanted to sell the products, they would say, hey, Susie, you like it? Here, go on my website. And they'd go on their website, and it would be a Rodan+Fields website, but it would be their website. So an order would come through, and they would get the commission for it. And people can make an excellent, very good living retailing the product. We have a lot of people who do. We have a fraction of the people who sell the product who want to build a very large business and build a business organization. So that happens by their bringing in other people who want to sell the product, but not just signing people up. It's bringing them in and training them and managing them. And they're able to do that. We've provided all the tools to do that online. So it's a business model that we call consumer connected commerce. So the consumer, the customer is at the heart and soul of it. That customer who's using our products is serviced by a consultant who's taking care of them, who's there to answer questions, take their orders, do whatever they need. And it's all happening online, and the message is all propagated through social media. So it can be done, yes, one-on-one in a Starbucks, but a lot of it happens over Facebook, Instagram, and social media. So this was actually a very lucky thing, because when we bought the business back from Estee Lauder at that moment in time was the rise of social media and the internet, coupled with a decline of the department stores. And also because it was a recession, that's what brings the entrepreneurs out, is a recession, right? People getting laid off from their jobs, they're seeing that there's no security in that. And so this is for somebody who wants to be an entrepreneur.
And so putting this system in place and building the business and relies on scale. It relies on a lot of people. Far more complex than your model with Proactive, where you had Guthrie
Yes.
Ranker being the fulfillment arm, the marketing arm, the sales arm.
That was us.
Now it's you doing all that
Yes.
stuff, and sort of inventory management and fulfillment, manufacturing, branding. Were there any points in time where it was touch and go, or you really thought this may not work?
Absolutely. So when we bought the business back, we went to my husband and said, look, because when we started Rodan+Fields, he came in and was our business partner in that. And then when we sold it to Estee Lauder, he kind of retired for a couple of years. And so when we bought it back, we said, hey, guess what? You got to go back to work. And so he really, and we brought in another woman named Lori Bush, who had experience in direct selling, to really help us build this out. But we built it out not based on any model or any traditional business that had existed, but really with our own vision on it. So yeah, there were lots of moments. So if you can imagine, we're finding our way through this. And you have massive computer glitches. You have inventory issues. We had bottles that came in once. I'm looking at the picture with Soothe on it, and it was written Soothe with like 6 O's. Soothe was on all the packages. And you're going, oh no, that can't go out. So, it was just there's problem after problem. And we would, and then trying to find people who wanted to sell it. That wasn't easy. That it takes a while to kind of get that snowball rolling. And so one of the funniest things was we decided we're going to launch it in Philadelphia. Why? I have no idea. But we decided we're going to launch it in Philadelphia, and we're going to really put the word out there on the street that the doctors who invented Proactive have now created a new line, and you could be part of it, and you could join, and hey, great, get it, start early. And so we went on the news, and we had street teams with flyers and ads and all that sort of stuff. We rented a ballroom, big ballroom in this hotel. And it's a Saturday, and it starts raining, which is bad. And we actually even said, and there'll be food, and there'll be a raffle of products, $1,000 worth of products. So it starts at 1 o'clock. My partner and I are sitting there. There's like 4 people in the room. And then some of our employees come in, and then homeless people start coming in, because it's raining, and we've just given out flyers saying there's free food. So we have, imagine, this is our first thing, 20 people in the room. I mean, if you don't think we felt like, is this ever going to work? And I remember looking at my husband Amnon and saying, do you think we're going to make it? And he'd say, I don't know, but we got to keep trying. So we kept, and we funded all of this, and this was expensive. So this really would have hurt badly had it not worked out.
The first time around you're searching for investors, you find a partner. This time around it's you own the company with Kathy.
Yes,
and
it's
some
us.
employees. So it's
We're
all
on
your
the-
money.
we're
You're
on the
on it.
hook.
You're on the hook. So it is all you.
It is scary.
I'm going to open up to questions from the students in a second. So, shift forward to today. I've watched some of your I don't know what you call them, but conferences. When you bring all the consultants together, and it's like a rock concert.
Yeah.
Seeing you and
We had
Kathy
Megan
on
Trainor there. That was our entertainment last year. So yeah, so it's really, it finally did take off, and it was, again, it's been a rocket ship. It's been an amazing ride, and what's so amazing and so gratifying is to see what people are really doing with this, and watching people build businesses. And when I was growing up, the mentor in my life really was my father, who would always say, Katie, be your own boss and make your own money. Don't ever depend on anybody. So it's a great message for women sitting in here. I'm sure you've heard that message already, but it was a very unusual message in my day. And so to see women who maybe, didn't have such a great job, maybe, who knows, didn't have the opportunity, got married, were now home with kids, to allow them, to empower them to find a way to really build a business. You watch what happens with their personal growth is astounding to see what happens with people. How they go from being afraid to stand up in front of a room of people to really commanding an audience, to helping people build a business, to really finding things about themselves that they never dreamed were there.
That's got to be so satisfying. I mean, that is the why. You said you're not chasing money. Most really successful people are not chasing money. They're chasing purpose and meaning and creativity and expressing their talents. And so it's got to be satisfying to see the lives that you're changing. You mentioned Bill Guthrie, a Guthrie Rinker that helped build Proactive. And Ben echoed this. When they looked at Proactive, that when it took off, it took off. And they said in their entire careers, they've never seen a product grow at that rate. Is there another product that's grown at that rate?
Yeah, even more so. So it really has. And let's go back to what is this business. This business is a skincare business. In fact, we can't really talk about numbers or things like that, but we're on our way, or maybe, who knows. Last year we were #2 premium skincare brand in the United States. So if you look at Clinique, as the Clinique brands, it has really just done amazing. And that's because the products work. And how do we know that? Well, we have 1 million customers. These are people who buy the product through somebody who sells it. So for every person who sells the product, there are 8 customers that they have. That's really tremendous. So these are people who have no vested interest in the business at all, but buy the products because they love the products and they use the products. So it really speaks to how good the products are. And my partner and I, that's what we're all about. We want to give people the best skin of their lives. We want to make products that really do make a profound difference, that are not little foo-foo dust in a jar, but really have value. And to find a way to put that into the hands and reward those people who want to get the word out and want to build a business and put their trust in us to help them do that it really gives a lot of meaning to my life, and I know to Kathy's too.
Oh, that's perfect. That's the perfect chance to open it up.
Hi, first of all, my name is Jack, and thank you for coming. Secondly, as someone that used Proactive to find success, I want to thank you again for the product. After taking risks and starting Proactive and the brand of Proactive, how did your relationship with risk change in making decisions through Rodan+Fields? Did you still find yourself uncomfortable with it, or?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, because people make the assumption that if you're an entrepreneur, you're a gambler, you're a risk taker, and I am so not that. And I would, venture to say Kathy would say the same thing. I never viewed these things as a risk. I got worried at times because I knew what I was doing was the right thing. I really knew we had products that worked, that were going to make a difference in people's lives, that we would find a way. So, getting back again to that advice my dad gave me, really self-reliance, independence, and keep pushing yourself. So it didn't really change. The risk wasn't there when we did Proactive, and the same thing with Rodan+Fields, because we knew we had to make it work.
My name is Sari. Thank you so much again for coming in. I was really interested by your consumer connected commerce model. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about how you got all of your consultants as excited and motivated and knowledgeable about Rodan+Fields as you were.
So the way that we do that, so we educate them in a number of different ways, but there's so much available online and on our website, and we have these replicated websites that provide all the product information to help the consultant as well as the customer to learn about the products. But then we have all these what we call back office tools to help them run their business. So there's a lot there available to support that, as well as we have a large field development team, so people who go and they help and train. But, and as I said, some people build a business, some people do it to retail the product, and a huge percentage of people who do it, who would be classified as consultants, do it because they have a community. But the vast majority of people are true customers. So what the consultants do, and in a market survey that we did of all the customers, I think they got a 92% excellent score from their customer as to the service they provide. So they're there to provide that service. We back it up too. We have what's called RF Connection, which is trained nurses who help also answer other kinds of questions. We have a whole customer service arm. So we really try to make it as easy as possible for people to build the business. But the customer is at the heart and soul of that consumer connected commerce.
So thank you for coming in. And when you spoke about with your first company, Proactive, it was just you and your business partner. Mm-hmm. What was the greatest difficulty then expanding to a direct selling model in Rodan+Fields when it came to hiring like that customer support center that you just mentioned and the nurses that can answer questions? What was the greatest difficulty with now hiring employees and actually having having them as part of your business?
So let me answer that by saying, first of all, my nightmare job in life would be to be a CEO. So I was never that. So I didn't have to worry about those headaches. We brought in somebody who had had that experience, plus my husband, the same thing. So we had two people. So it was more their headache than it was mine. But it starts small. I mean, you know, we started with a couple of employees in a little tiny office, and it built, you know, today we have about 550 employees now who help to run that, manage that business, and probably will have 1,000 within short order. So it grows slowly. It grows organically. All these things grow very organically. They have their kind of own rhythm.
Hi, my name is Sophie Wicks. I'm actually a health student as well. I'm studying to go pre-med, taking the MCAT.
Go for it.
Thank you. I thank you so much again for coming. I wanted to see, how do you make the science tangible for customers, and how did you originally jump into the doctor product to something tangible and kind of sexy, and marketing kind of a science-based, discussing, you know, acne to something that's very accessible and that people really loved and wanted to buy?
So, you know, it really comes from basically a knowledge and experience with patients. So when you spend your career and you're talking to people one-on-one, and you get to understand what's in their mind, what bothers them, how to explain things, you have many opportunities to explain how products work, how medicines work, what acne is. You kind of, you know, perfect that. So that's a lot of the communication that we use, the communication style. You have to bring it to, you know, very accessible way. How, your other part of your question was how did it become sexy? How did acne become sexy?
So you made the science tangible, and how did you grow that from your product to grow that into the skincare market?
Well, we had the skincare product, and the market grew by getting that message out. So, and that was done with Proactive, with an infomercial, and with Rodan+Fields. It's really through one consultant to another, word of mouth, and all happens with social media and online.
Hi, thanks so much for coming. You talked a lot about how you were kind of running this on the side out of your own paycheck. You just had the one partner, you had your practice, you had your marriage, you had your family. Can you talk about kind of your personal regimen that gave you energy and the stamina and the perseverance to just keep bringing energy through every pursuit, through every day, even till now you're still seeing patients at your practice?
Yeah, you mean my many nervous breakdowns? No, you know what, here's my best advice, and I have some little tips I can come up with for you, but one of them is, for the women especially in this room, the most important business decision you will ever make is who you marry, because that person is your partner. And if you don't have somebody who believes in you and supports you, it's nearly impossible to make it and sustain a marriage. So I have that person. That's, you know, having the greatest parents, I have the greatest husband. And so it was a partnership. So we had to get through this together. He was there with me every step of the way in a number of different ways. So the personal, you know, varied from one day to the next. I never had a great luck with nannies, so I was constantly worried about my kids, and I'm working full time, and you know, it's a million things. So it changed over the course of years. Eventually, you know, I was working 5 days a week in a practice. When Proactive started to become successful, I cut back to 3 days a week. So I cut that back so I'd allow for more time. And now my children are grown up, and I have 2 grandchildren, and So somehow it all worked out okay. But it's just kind of getting through it one day at a time and having the support of somebody who's wonderful.
You also know what you like to do well, and avoid the stuff that you
Yes.
for yourself. I'm not going to be a CEO. Everybody thinks they found a company. I got to be the boss. I got to be
Yeah,
the CEO.
no.
And you were quick to bring someone in who's got that experience.
Right.
It's really important for
It,
yourself.
well, and it applies to a lot of things. So it really applies to almost everything in life. I call it keep your aces in their places. So you find really the best people who can help you to get there. And you think about the things that you are good at and that you feel like you can add value and really do well and that you want to do. And for the other things, maybe it's the carpooling, that somebody else does that. So you have to sort of look at it that way and balance out your time doing that.
Hi, I'm Paulina Quinn. Thank you also for coming and sharing about your experience. You mentioned how you've now solved kind of the acne problem, and then you came up with this great skincare line that has now also taken off. Do you have any new projects that you're working on, or are you just kind of enjoying your grandchildren and everything?
Oh no, we're really busy. So Rodan+Fields is growing, and it's been growing every year, year after year, and to maintain that growth. I mean, everybody's, you go, wow, you're really growing, that's really amazing. But to manage that growth, to watch our executives try and manage that growth is really challenging because you can be done on by that, taken down by that. So no, by no means have I really slowed down. It's just we are opening international markets very slowly, very methodically, very carefully, and it's just keeping up with that. It's doing press. It's finding new means of communicating. I mean, what we're doing now virtually is just amazing how we are connecting. Dave mentioned that we had a convention last year. So we sold out. We had 15,000 people who were there. This was in Las Vegas. And we had almost 35,000 people who signed up and paid to participate virtually. So that was our first real, take into that world. So we're doing a lot more things virtually. So it keeps going, it keeps growing, and it keeps changing. And I think that's another key. You've got to really stay nimble and move with however society is changing and tastes are changing and what people are looking for. Again, it goes back to putting the person at the heart and soul of your business and what their needs are.
Hi, my name is Michael. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your time and sharing everything. I would like to know if you can share, please, what are some key factors of having a successful partnership with your relationship with Kathy and that whole journey, how?
Yeah. Well, I have been extremely fortunate. Kathy has been an absolutely wonderful partner. I mean, we've really maintained a very close friendship and a very good working relationship. Now, that's not to say, that everything is always hunky-dory and we agree on everything. We don't, but we really find ways to sort of manage that. Many people will ask, well, does she do one thing and then you do another thing? And it's really not like that. We both have very similar skill sets. But I think that somehow it works. Like anything in life, when you find whether it's your marital partner or your business partner, there's so much chemistry involved. And I think there is a very good chemistry that the two of us have that has allowed us to be successful. I'm not sure if it had just been one of us, if it would have ever turned out this way.
Hi, Dr. Rodan. Thank you for coming today. So someone touched on it a little bit earlier, but I was wondering about your consumer-connected commerce. So in terms of when you're looking for consultants and hiring new people, I'm wondering what type of obstacles or maybe liabilities you've had to face when hiring so many new people.
So I'm so glad you asked this question, because I think it's really, it provides me with an opportunity to really clarify how this business works. We don't hire anyone. None of these consultants work for us. They are all independent contractors. We don't do, our advertising budget, as my husband likes to say, is this big. It's zero. We don't go out there looking for them as a business or as a company. This is purely word of mouth. And so they self-select. They decide based on, whatever it is they're looking for. And, we talked about the why. For people, there's a why involved, and the why changes over time. But they find us. And that's the beauty. And for some, it really works. And for other people, they transition, into something else. But it really is, it's a self-selected group of people. So, yes. So liabilities, yeah. Well, okay, so we do have a legal department, and the main job of our legal department, and one of the primary ones, is what we call compliance. So when somebody decides to become a consultant, there is a booklet, it's probably about this thick, I don't know, but it's a compliance doctrine, and they have to read it and sign it. And it's a whole list of what you can do, what you can say, what you cannot say, how you have to conduct your business. And that's what we're constantly monitoring the web and everything, and looking at compliance with that, because that's really key to us. We don't want people making false claims about anything, whether it's the business or what the products do. So that's how that is managed, and it's really been pretty successful. The quality of the person who is attracted to our business has been really surprising in such a beautiful way, because the people who have joined us as consultants, for the most part, are the most perfect demographic for something like this. They are educated. They're women. Most of them are women in their their early 30s to their 50s. They have had, many of them, corporate jobs, legal jobs. They've real estate. I mean, they come from a lot of different educational and professional backgrounds. And it's a really wonderful group of people to work with. So they really get it. We don't attract anybody, it seems like, who's done any kind of direct selling before, because we're not that. We're so different. Those people are not interested in us. It's really people who say, you know what, I have 3 kids. I gave up my, fantastic job at Morgan Stanley, and in order to stay home with my kids, but I'm finding that I'm, going brain dead, and I want an outlet. I want to do something with my life that is mine alone. And so that's how they get involved with the business, and then it takes off and has a whole life of its own for them. So that's the typical person who joins our business. So they've been really great to work with.
And if you are, looking at the difference, part of the beauty and simplicity of the business is that it's by using independent contractors and not employees. So just think of them, they're substituting for the retail. They're the
Yes.
distribution. They're the face of it, except they're exclusive to one product, basically. Well, I guess they don't have to be exclusive. They could sell other
Right.
things, but they sell their product. So if you need to know the difference, a lot of your businesses are going to be sort of scaled that way with virtual talent, not virtual talent, but people who are independent contractors. So you can't dictate the times that they work,
Right.
the days that they work, the places they work. They're just providing a product and a selling system. Think of it as almost like a franchise. You're not liable for them. Yes, if they go out there and make some crazy representations, but they've covered themselves in the in sort of the thing that you have to sign. But just be smart about independent contractors. Don't cut too close to the line, because it's an IRS thing. If you say someone's an independent contractor, but you say, show up at my office at 9 a.m. Monday through Friday and do this work that I hand to you and hand it back to me and report to me, there's like 20 tests that show whether you're an independent contractor or you're an employee. And you don't want to cut it close to the line, because as the employer, the penalties are on you, and they're severe. So that's the beauty of their models. They have very few direct employees other than their management and leadership structure.
Right.
You skipped. You didn't know right here. Second row. With his hand up, to your left, to your left. You're getting warmer, left. There you go.
Hi, I was wondering because you mentioned you had another acne product. So is it completely different from Proactive, and how did the legality work out?
So our other acne product is Unblemish, and it is a 3-step acne system. It has some difference in the medications that are in it, completely different formulations, different ingredients. It's geared towards a different demographic. Proactive was much more teenage kind of product. This is a more adult product, or was actually created more for adult acne. So it has a lot of luxurious feel to it, and ingredients that support that.
Hi, thank you. I wanted to ask, since you're a doctor, first of all,
You want to show me a mole?
Well,
Now that you mention it.
I mean, there's, but what I wanted to ask is that how much did you have to move to the business and finance and being kind of distracted from your main practice, given that you are practicing, and how were you able to balance your time and to be able to do all of this, given again you didn't have that many employees either?
So in both situations, personally, my partner, I or Kathy, we don't run the business. So that's the kind of key. So our time we can structure it very differently. So our main areas of focus are strategy, product development, and the face of the brand, and the vision for the brand, and a lot of different touch points with that. But it's a very complicated business, and we've got amazing leadership team to take care of that and keep it running, and it's really complicated, so.
Hi, I'm Maggie. Thank you so much for being here. I love your pants. They're awesome. Just curious, you've started 2 amazing companies, and if you were to do it again, would you do anything differently?
No.
There's,
Hi, can you talk about the partnership with Guthrie Ranker, how you found them and why you chose them? And when you were in the talks with them, how did you prepare your guys' your partnership to not be taken advantage of because you didn't have that background?
So we found them, again, it was through my mother at a judges conference. So that was just pure serendipity that happened. As I like to tell people, you never know who you're going to meet. I'm always urging my kids to be friendly and put themselves out there and get to know your classmates, because you never know how you can help each other. So anyway, Guthrie Ranker, we were introduced to them. And how did we know? We didn't really know. And they didn't really know. I mean, they were new at the game too. So, we hired a lawyer, did what we thought was fair. It turned out to be, good for both sides, and it worked out. So I'd say get good legal help.
Hi, Katie. I'm Leo Masacci. Thank you so much for coming in here tonight. It's an absolute pleasure to have you. I was wondering, what were the secret sauce behind the branding of Proactive that helped differentiate it from the competitors and landed Proactive a household name?
I think the secret sauce is that it worked. I think it really is that simple. It wasn't the celebrities that actually sold the product. A lot of people think it was P. Diddy or Alicia Keys, but it wasn't. They're known as channel stoppers. So when you're watching TV and you see that celebrity, you're like going, huh, what's going on? And then you get drawn in to hear the stories and learn about the product. It was word of mouth. So that's what really sold Proactive. And how did we know that? Well, we had an 800 number where people would call and they'd leave what was called their success story. And we'd transcribe all these messages. And I mean, I have a huge filing cabinet full of those. I could never bear to throw any of those away. And it would be people saying, I watched the commercial 20 times. It wasn't until the 6th person told me that they had tried it that finally I agreed to try it, and wow, did it work, and it surpassed my expectations. So that's what really sold the product, was seeing somebody's skin change, somebody that they knew who, you know, had been using the product and had success. And it was that information, that experience that we took for Rodan+Fields, because it was the same thing, and to find a way to replicate it, and now we could do it literally on steroids because of the internet and social media.
Great questions. I really like the questions today. We're gonna try and wrap up a few minutes early because she has the flight back to Northern. Are you flying Oakland or San Francisco?
Oakland.
Oakland. All right, and we want to give her a gift. So I want you to think about, and this is also not just for you, but I want you to bring this back to Amnon, her husband, to know.
Is it something to eat?
No. We'll get you something on the way. On the way
No,
there.
no,
I'll take it.
no. He likes food.
And you're right. He is such a great compliment to you. He's sort of the straight, analytical, doesn't sugarcoat it, no BS, and is a great person to have as a chairman and a CEO in the first company. And what's his role in this? Is he a chairman or this?
He's the chairman of the board.
Chairman of the board of the second company. So we want to think about some of the lessons we've learned today from Katie. So 5 years from now, we're so lucky to have her come down here. But 5 years from now, what are some of the lessons that you're going to take away with you? Whether it's a quote, a bit of advice, something that just struck with you. Let's see some hands. Oh, I love it. All right, let me get this. I'm going to videotape this and get it to you. Ready? Go.
You know yourself better than anyone else.
Keep your aces in your places.
Luck favors the prepared mind.
The most important business decision you will ever make is who you marry.
Don't worry about risk because you know what you're doing.
Be confident and be strong.
You don't need money to make money. Stay nimble. Flip the tortilla.
Flip the tortilla. Awesome. Anyone up here? Hold on. Hold on.
Be your own boss and don't depend on anybody.
You have to be willing to push past the naysayers, even if it's yourself.
That's a great one. Anyone over here? Other side. I'm gonna show some hustle. Oh yeah, I'm an athlete. Was. Don't laugh. All right, go.
The most important business decision you're gonna make in life is who you marry.
That applies to both men and women. That's.
Love listening to people.
Be willing to put yourself out there to see what you are made of.
Excellent.
Look forward instead of backwards.
Great one.
Recessions make entrepreneurs.
Good time.
The person is the heart and soul of a business.
Make sure your partner believes in you.
Let's give a warm thank you to Katie Rodan.
Thank you. And I have one to add. I have one to add that I hope you'll really remember this. If I can do it, you could do it.
Oh, that's great. Come down and meet Katie.